Greetings, people of Earth. How is everyone doing? Hopefully, doing great. I am joined here with the beautiful Elonda.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Me and Elonda have just been chatting away before starting this podcast. It's always good to chat with friends. So
Yes.
let's get into it. Today's episode of Unavoidable Shit is being comfortable with sexuality.
Mm.
Wanna know? We figured this week we should do something light and fun, and what's more fun than sexuality, right?
Yeah.
I will admit that going into this episode, I was like, oh shit, like, I think I'm more nervous about this than I was for the religious trauma um, because it has, I don't know, is it really personal? Now I'm sitting here analyzing, like, is this subject matter really personal? It is, and then at the same time, it is not. So in the conversation of sexuality, um, we will let's just start with.
Well, I think in this conversation, you and I we couldn't be more opposites.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to say that without being
Yeah.
like, me and Yolanda are two different people
Yeah,
sexually.
we're on two sides of the spectrum, diametrically opposed. Where I'm
Yeah,
such a prude and
I am
conservative.
not.
Yeah. So it's going to be, I think it's great. I always like to talk about sexuality because I'm so curious about it, because I'm not as daring with my sexuality because of my conditioning, because of the way I was raised. I was raised Catholic. And then, like I mentioned before, I was part of this like Christian, esoteric Christian cult where sexuality was its base. And
Which I could only imagine has a lot of um, disagreeing opinions about actual sexuality.
yeah. And I remember when I first got divorced, I still felt a lot of shame in having what I would consider normal sex, right? Because the way
Mhm.
they told us to practice sex was different. And so it's only been within the recent, I think 2 years that I've shared with you that I want to be a little bit more experimental with my sexuality. But there's a lot of things that I'm just not really open to. I never was, and it's not to say that I didn't do it. I just felt a lot of shame when I would partake in certain sexual acts. One, because I was raised Catholic and led to believe that it's shameful behavior uh, to do certain things, and it was reinforced
What are
in
these things?
his
Let's crack
oral
it
sex.
open, What are
Right. So, like, for like as an example, like oral sex, like
Mhm.
that's like, and I think it's just obviously it's an antiquated model, and it's not to say that I have not done it, but when I do, I don't know if it's something that I genuinely dislike, that doesn't feel good in my body, or it's just an automatic shame, like like just a shameful thing.
And which is crazy because I think a lot of women feel that way.
Mm.
Um, because even like my mom has admitted to just like not being one of those girls that is like, no, I'm just not gonna do that. No, that's nasty. Um, and I find it to be the most powerful thing I've ever discovered.
Mhm.
I don't really actually know how to explain it, but something in the ability to perform oral sex gives me this power that I don't think I understood until I was about 30, like how to embody that I was doing on my knees in my everyday life.
Mm.
And realizing like how much power I possess, especially when it came to men and
Mm.
um, understanding that I had been using this weird sexuality thing as something that I could only feel in bed, but now I can actually feel it anytime that I want to go into that. Because there's something about, at least I should say, there's something about the way I perform oral sex or give a blowjob that gives me a sense of power. I also realize that when I do it, there are very few times where the man is in control. I am most of the time in control because I have learned how to take control in this situation. So I can understand why people would feel that way because I think at first I was real not sure if I even liked it. I had some situations when I was very young. I didn't come out until I was um, 18, and I probably did not have a sexual experience with a male until then. So
Mm,
after that point, there were um, there was like very I didn't really know if I was like, oh, I don't know if I like this. There's fluids that come out beforehand, and I'm like, oh, what is this fluid? And
Tama, mm.
yeah, I don't, which I can see, but then as I got older, and this is the part that I was most nervous about is, I was a sex worker for a period of time, um, a long period of time, a couple of years, and in that I sort of gain the ability to want to do it because I think the relationships that I had been with, I never really had to do it. I was a top in all of those relationships. I also did not try bottoming until I was probably um, 21.
Mm,
So there was a long period of time where there was just some things sexually I didn't even dive into because I was just like, no, that ain't right. I don't think I should do that. Especially like anal
mhm,
sex is like, oh no. Are you crazy? Uh, but as far as oral sex, I felt kind of like, no, that's not really like my thing. I never really had to do it. Um,
mhm,
and then I think after my first relationship, I got into, remember Katrina? Well, I was in
mhm,
Texas during Katrina. And there was um, a bunch of what they called refugees, I guess, but people who were victims of
mhm.
Katrina that like flooded
Lola.
this, yeah, that flooded the city of San Antonio. And I was like boy crazy because I had just gotten out of a really long 4.5 year relationship, and I just wanted some dick. Like I for the first time was like, oh, I understand what they mean. Like I want some dick. Back then, I was the one who was, giving the dick. So I would be like, I want some ass. So it was this sort of, which is another conversation to be had. The ideas between heteronormative stuff being placed into homosexual communities,
Mm,
because you begin to operate that way while I'm the man and you are obviously the woman because I
mhm,
penetrate you. Um, but anyways, so I met this guy, and it was all like, one of those crazy drunken nights, and we made out from the second floor of the Bottom Exchange nightclub in San Antonio all the way to the car. And then I was like, I want to blow this dude. So I ended up like blowing him in a parking lot. Yes, because I'm that bitch. So I ended up blowing him in the parking lot. And afterwards, he was like, oh my God, that was like incredible. And in that moment, I was like, man, I think I like doing this. I was like, I really was attracted to him. He was really different from any guy that I'd have ever really been with. He had, he was New Orleans, and mm, I was like, he was a little rough around the edges.
mhm,
My brother always said that I was one of those little suburban girls who like to date like hood niggas,
mhm,
which I have had spell with.
mhm,
But at that point, I was just like, oh my god, like this is crazy. Like I felt like I had a different kind of control than ever that I ever had when I was being so-called a top.
Mhm.
And I was like, I think I like this. And then I think from there on, it sort of just got more and more because I realized like I can make men give me money for the oral skills that I possess, and I can
Mhm.
make men do things for me that I couldn't do before when I was a younger man,
Mhm.
meaning like 18. Um, I was the one who was always the one having to take care of things like, again, straight roles,
Mhm.
feeling like that was my duty. And this guy that I dated was like the wife and stayed home and did all of it. Was crazy. It was
Mhm.
crazy. Non sexually evolving at all. I think the only evolution that I really had in my early stages of my 20s, like from 18 to 21, was uh, not that explorative. I think by the most we had sex in like somebody else's house. Um, but I did not do that much exploring. And then I met a friend that was um, a a real hoe and was like, "Bitch,
Real.
I'm gonna show you." Because I was always like, I was single. I dated that guy from New Orleans for a little while. That was crazy. And then I was single for a good little while. I've been single after that point. I've really sort of remained single. So I've always been able to sleep with whoever I want and free to do whatever I want.
Mhm.
So I met a friend who saw me and was like, "Yeah, I think that you should hang out with me more."
Mhm.
Literally turned me into a hoe, but I love him for that. Because without that experience, I honestly don't know how I would have survived in Chicago the first time that I lived here.
Mm.
Because I survived on blowjobs and slinging dick. And I'm okay with that. It was fun. I always called myself like a little boy of leisure,
Uh-huh.
because I worked from the lakefront. I'd be at the beach, sun tanning and
Yeah.
emailing the guy on my BlackBerry about where we were going to meet tonight and what restaurant
Uh-huh.
we were going to go to. But anywho's, I sort of distracted myself in there. Um, Once I met this friend, he sort of we did drag a lot. And in drag, we would like he loved to just get dressed up and go down to like the gay area of San Antonio and basically prostitute. And at first, I was kind of like, "Oh my god, is this fucking crazy? Like, am I really doing this?" But I have done some of the craziest things in that little area, so I really kind of was like, what is so bad?" And then I had to like release um, my mindset around what I thought prostitution looked like and what it like
Mm.
I was like, are people gonna think I'm on crack or meth or
Mhm.
I'm just a person who likes to suck dick. So that's what we did. We would go down there and it sort of snowballed. And even in that, I had this profound like experience of being like, I control these situations with oral sex. So for me, it's a little different. I
But
believe that.
can I ask you, I'm not trying to interrupt you, but
Oh, no, go ahead. I've been talking
can
about it.
you unpack that? Like, what do you mean you can control? Because it's so foreign to me.
So
Um,
go ahead.
like to control what? Like just by I
Like
don't
situations,
okay.
um, I no longer felt okay. So I think my first relationship, I felt so duped,
Mm,
because he cheated so many times and I was providing for him that I really honestly, when I look back at it, I didn't have any control over it. This dude was manipulating my whole situation, um, in favor of him to be able to benefit, right?
right.
The same thing with the second guy. He was kind of crazy and he ended up like sleeping with my best friend because he was like, you work too much and you do all of these. And I wanted to still hang out with my friends because I had just been kind of freshly single, like a year single.
Mhm.
maybe a little bit longer than that. I think 21 is about when that relationship ended because I just got
Mhm.
into a car accident and he wrote me these awful letters. And I just was like, I could be dead. And because I didn't show up, because I basically almost died on the side of the road, I almost had to be airlifted. And he sent me these letters, and I was just like, this motherfucker never appreciated anything that I had did. I sacrificed my family. I sacrificed me
Mhm.
when I look back on it now. I gave up myself and who I knew I was, and for this relationship that I thought had to involve all of this crazy change because it was so different from my hetero relationships. If you know, anybody knows me, I dated women up until about 18.
Mhm.
So it was a change, and it was so much of me given to this person that I was like, I felt like I wasn't in control ever. And he would like pick fights and call me crazy and that I was flirting with people. And it was always chaotic.
And how was your sexual life during that period when your
What's
role
crazy is we
or
fucked all the time because for me, like it was new sex. Like I had
Mhm.
sex with women and it was just never that fulfilling.
Mhm.
So with him, the first time that we had sex, it felt so fulfilling that I felt like it was something deeper,
Mm.
that I was like, oh, I'm gay. Oh, yeah. Now that I've done this, gay.
It's yeah.
It just like all clicked because I was like, that's why it never felt that great
Uh-huh.
with women. And it was like I was having to focus too much. Like it was too much.
Mhm.
So I changed everything for this person, and he robbed me of it. It's like that poem from For Color Girls when she's like, somebody just walked away with all my shit, and I just
Mhm.
stood there and watched her. I
Mhm.
was like, "What, dude?" And then the next relationship was the same. So I never really felt this like I can control this person and have actual control over my life and this person that was coming in and out of my life. So when I switched over to that, then I had this ability to be like, no, I don't want that, and no, I do want this. Um,
So you got
and
that from giving oral sex?
yes, from giving oral sex. One, because men started treating me almost like I think they treat women. And that is
Ah.
carefully and almost willing to do anything for them. Where before the other way around, my previous relationships, I was the one trying to do that for them. Like, I'll do all of these things so that you can love me. Where now it was flipped. They were like, man, you give good head and I want to do this for you. Like, I
Ah.
had a motherfucker text me almost a decade later, like, remember that time you blew me in that parking lot? Like, I'm just sitting here thinking about this shit right now.
It was
um,
that good.
yeah, so I had this experience of like,
Ah.
oh my God, like it almost made me feel like I was pretty, that I was attractive. And I've
You
definitely
are.
well, oh no, yeah, I know that. But with that kind of power, when you have somebody that's willing to be like, I'll go like kill a bitch for you if you just like, blow me or fuck me, um, or I'll give you, later on in the sex working game, men, I never gave a blowjob for less than $100.
Wow, really?
Yeah. So when I hear like some people when they talk about like, oh, I made this amount of money sucking dick, like $20, like I could never. So then I had this different lifestyle, right? So now
Mhm.
my ability to be sexual um, has gotten me into like trips to Sagatuck, Michigan, staying at Airbnbs,
Mm.
drinking bottles of Dom Perignon, like um, and my life changed. All the while, like still really struggling because I was so young and so dumb that I didn't think like, let me save this money. I would be like out buying weed, out buying, I can't tell you how many pairs of Armani underwear that I had
Mm.
at, 40, 50, $60 a pair of underwear.
Right.
So that I can look cute for these guys, so that they can think that I look just as expensive and luxurious as they are. So when I say it gave me a different type of power, it's because I went from being the dude who was trying to make it happen for the dude to now being the dude where somebody was trying to make it happen for me.
Mhm.
Now that came with some setbacks.
Mhm.
I definitely had somebody try to intentionally give me HIV because he was like, "I want to keep you for the rest of our lives," and you know, it comes with the territory, right?
Right.
It made me realize like what being like we were talking about the other day, being an object really
Right.
is. Because I had never, I guess I had been treated like an object before, but not in the sense of like that because I felt like it was so grimy, the lengths that he went to lie about it. And we had been sleeping with each other for months. And then out of nowhere was like, oh yeah, I'm HIV positive while I'm at like an open mic
Mm.
night. So it immediately gave me a reset. So I had to be different with all of the guys. I had to keep it just sexual because with him it sort of started to evolve into something a little bit more. Like I would sleep with him on a regular, and he always bought my weed when I was hanging out with him. Like I'd be like, "Hey, I want to hang out," and he'd be like, "Well, here's $100 to buy some weed." And then we would hang out. He would take me. Girl, I went to all kinds of nice restaurants.
No, that's right.
So that's why, like even now, I still have this sort of mindset that like that life could be so much easier, but I also realize like it comes with so much. Again, so now we talk about I thought I was in control, but who was
Mhm.
really in control?
Mhm.
Now I see it totally different. Yes, I do have a different type of power in that sense because I can draw this energy towards me, and it almost feels like this guy will worship the ground I walk on because I am good at XYZ.
Mhm.
But it also came with these really big penalties. Um, Not that I have HIV, I probably should clarify that after all of that.
Right.
But in not and now I'm so more aware of people and their motives and why are trying to get towards me.
Mhm.
Um, Going back to that idea of sexuality, I think that in the evolution of my sex working, I developed this way to like almost ooze sexuality all the time. Be
Almost
it
lose what? I'm sorry?
almost ooze
Ooze.
sexuality, like
Okay. Mhm.
almost like it's coming out of my pores.
Mhm.
Um,
And is it something that you're comfortable with? Like, or when did
I
you
am
become
comfortable with it
comfortable?
because now I think it is interesting when I go into situations because I can be very hypersexual
Mhm.
and still be like, but at the same time, I'm not out here fucking with nobody. I actually have this sexuality for myself because
Mm.
it makes me feel confident because I think that what people don't realize is confidence is sexuality. The two are almost one and the same.
Mhm.
um, that why we think people are really attractive is sometimes because they are really confident in themselves. So I use it differently now because I love to be able to engage and say really forward things and act very provocatively, but at the same time know that like nobody will be able to access that unless I really give them consent to access it.
Mm.
I also think that for a long while, I did that very carelessly.
Mm.
And it allowed some of my friends to sort of do things that were off guard, like, forcibly try to make out with me, or, um, you know, there was a night when my roommate Dimitri picked me and a few gay guys. And I think every guy in that car who were my friends
Mhm.
was hitting on me and like, um, trying to make out with me. I remember trying to like give my friend a hug as he was going back in the house, and he just like grabbed a hold of me and was like trying to kiss me. I was just like, I gotta go. This is awkward, like I know your boyfriend. Ugh. Um, um, so I was for a long time very careless about my sexuality. I thought because of the sex work that it was my way how I connected with people. Now it is just something that is a little fragment of my personality. A little
Mm,
piece of me is vulgar, I should say.
mhm,
Um, but before I was using it in that way, and things like that would happen. Like people that I was friends with for years would think that they could be um, aggressively sexual towards me. I was just telling my mom about one of my friends that I grew up with, and I was like, I just think he really always liked me because our friendship sort of dissolved in the like worst way possible.
mhm,
But we were talking about it. I think he always liked me, but knew that he would never be able to have me because I was just like not into it.
mhm.
Um, and that frustrated him. So I realized what it what that entails when I am constantly abusing my sexualness, that it will hurt people over time.
And when you say constantly abusing your sexualness, what do you mean by that? Like, how do you abuse? Can you give an example?
Um, I can give an example. I think that a lot of times when I meet people, whether it's a guy or a girl,
Mhm,
I am very forward about how open I am sexually.
mm,
And then I usually dress uh, pretty provocatively a lot of
mhm,
times.
mm,
I'm very comfortable with touching people when I feel comfortable with them. If I
mhm,
don't feel comfortable with them, I'm not very open to touching people.
mhm,
I'm very closed off. So when people get into that inner circle with me, I think that a lot of times they confuse my deeper hugs or my touch on the shoulders and my because I am such a sexual person. I've always been
mhm,
open about talking about being a sex worker. I've always been open about being
mhm.
sexually an object.
Right.
So I think that when I do all of those things, when I talk about it, when I'm very comfortable being, in your space with you, when
Right.
I that it starts to read like, well, at any time I could be comfortable doing the same thing to him. Um, and I would use that a lot. That's how I made friends for the longest. That's why I say it's always hard for me to make gay friends because I am so comfortable. I think a lot of times they perceive like, oh, he wants to fuck me, and
Mm,
it's like, no, I'm just cool talking about sex in a very open manner. I'm cool being sexual in a very open manner. I'm cool to teach you how to give a blowjob. I'm cool, like I'm cool to
mhm,
be in my own sexuality and comfortable with my own sexuality. That I think that the perception sometimes now is that I should be easily accessible. But
mhm,
before, when I did it, I was consciously doing it because I knew that they would like me because I was so vulgar, or because I was willing to be like, I don't give a shit. Like, I'll suck a dick. I don't care.
mhm,
Um, um, because I knew that that is what made people attracted to me. I did
ah,
this thing at the Bodie here in Chicago.
mhm,
Um, and they did this thing at which we sat in a circle and we had to tell people um, something that we didn't want people in the room to know.
mhm.
Now, for me, I knew automatically. Now, this is listen to how this sounds.
Okay.
So I knew automatically what it was that I did that I never really want anybody to ever know, unless you like a good whole friend with me, which I know she knows who she is if she's hearing this podcast. You know what I'm doing, but most people don't know what I'm doing, or
Mhm,
that I have some sort of ulterior motive in what I'm doing. So I said, um, I often use my sexuality and
mhm,
being hypersexual um, to make people like me
mm,
so that I can manipulate them.
mm,
And everybody was like, that makes sense. Now, when I came in, I had biked from like the north side of Chicago. I had these
Mhm.
tiny, tiny little shorts on. I had this little cut off crop top shirt. So I knew that I was going to have to walk into this place and be sweaty and glistening and half naked. So I knew what I was trying to do. And it made me instantly realize like these people realize that I'm doing that to them right now. I
Right.
want to be desired for you to want me to be a part of your group or your circle or whatever. Because I
Mhm.
did. I wanted to be a part of whatever they were doing. And I knew that they were, queer friendly and all of these other things, open minded. So I knew that I can show up in this sort of hypersexualized state.
Mhm.
And they would be like, yes, we want him to stay.
Right.
So that's what I mean when I say I abuse it.
Oh.
Um, because I use it in that way. When I go
Mhm.
out, if I know I'm going out that's in sort of a gay area or whatever, I may not put on so much clothes or like now, like wearing just a sweater as the outfit. I also felt like since we were talking about sexuality, I might as well, you know,
Show a little
make
something,
myself feel
something.
sexy. So and even that, like I feel sexy when I can show and expose my skin and my body because I
Mhm.
know that it is beautiful, like so I know that's one of the characteristics that I possess that I know people are always like, "Oh my god, this is so beautiful." I can't tell you how many men who are just like, "Your skin is so beautiful." Which, as a dark skinned black person, is rare to hear that in a positive way.
Yeah.
So allowing that to be my thing. Um, so yeah, I have sort of evolved into knowing that because I do that and because I am now aware of it and because I told it to a group of people in a room, that I have to work on that. So I try
Mm.
to tone it down and just like since the pandemic, I have
Mhm.
really been into the notion of like being extremely covered and still being sexy. Like,
Mm.
I'm taking a note from the Muslim girls, and I'm saying, like, "You won't
Yes.
see this shit until we about to do this shit."
Yeah.
And I still feel sexy. Now, I might still have moments where I wear my little cutoff shirts or whatever, but I understand it differently now. Like, I don't have to put myself out there because then I realized, like, I just had an experience recently at which I thought that I was supposed to be teaching yoga to somebody, but I
Mhm.
think that they had other intentions. And
Mm.
we're like, yeah, let's do this naked yoga class in your apartment. Luckily, I since something was awry.
Naked yoga?
Naked. Well, because I have been actually trying to get into teaching naked yoga, um,
Huh.
but I just haven't had the space that will allow it to happen because,
Uh-huh.
legalities.
And within what we're talking about, your sexuality, is that something that you're
I
used
think a
to?
part of that is that because I think there is
Ah.
nothing more beautiful than the natural human body in whatever shape. Like for me, I'm like Oprah. I bounce back and forth from big to little to big to little to big to little. So
Mhm.
a part of it is reclaiming that I can be okay naked. My clothes are off and I love myself, and that's okay. I
Mm.
don't have to be ashamed of it. I don't have to
Mhm.
be, I have gynecomastia, which is the development of breast tissue.
Mhm.
Um, and for the longest, I was so ashamed of my body. Like, and that's why with the sex working, I sort of turned over this, like, what? You find me attractive enough to, like, give me money?
Mhm.
Because I was insecure. I was burned as a child I was
Mhm.
burned at like 13. Half my face was pink all through high school, and then it sort of I've evened out.
Mhm.
I'm just now evening out, actually. But I had all of these things that told me that my body wasn't beautiful, and I had to. A part of my getting comfortable with my sexuality is being okay with my body.
Mm.
I was for as you can can you not see? No, I'm cut off, but I have several photos of me or drawings of me naked on my walls.
Mhm.
I have sat for people naked. I've explored this body of mine and being comfortable and being naked in front of other people because it is all we really have. The clothes are just the sparkly things that make it better.
Mhm.
We only really have our bodies, and if we don't love our bodies, it makes other situations very difficult because you will always place those insecurities in every situation that you go into.
Mhm.
Um, and that is problematic. So I've been wanting to have this class at which we can see our bodies, love our bodies, and then move with our bodies.
Mm.
Um, because that's the next thing. Like, because anybody can like their body standing and looking directly in the mirror, but do you like your body in pigeon? Do you like your body in a forward fold? Like, do you like your body when it's got rolls happening because you're bending and flexing and
Yeah, that's true.
so having that, that reacquaintance with the body and being like, I love you because you're just all I have and I should love you for who you are and what you are and how you are,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, so that's me and my
Yay.
sexuality. Not all of me, but just pieces of me, and then probably things will unfold.
Yeah.
But Elonda, I wanted to
Yes.
talk with you about your reality with your sexuality because in at the same sense, I know that you are also though you are like I'm a prude. I know that you are still comfortable with who you are because I can see it every time I look
Yeah.
at you. You know. And
Yeah.
a part of that to me is sexual. That if I'm comfortable with the naked me and the aging me and the whatever me, then that is the sexual thing for me. Like that is being sexual if you're okay with
Thank
that.
you. I've never seen it that way, but thank you. That's interesting. I'm gonna have to meditate on that. Yeah, I'm very comfortable with me. Obviously, of course, I have insecurities when I say that. Doesn't mean that I'm believe myself to be perfect or that I don't have insecurities. Yes. Do I sometimes get uncomfortable when, at a certain angle the rolls ain't looking too, cute? Of course. I'm a woman living in this society when we're fed, for our bodies to look a certain way. Um, but yeah, I mean, I really don't have that much sexual experience. Definitely not that many sexual partners. I have experimented within, since my divorce. But even within that experimentation, I've always done it within the confines of like a consistent sexual partner, I should say.
Mm.
You
No, I
know,
mean that's always good. Trust me, when I was sleeping with all those people, they were all consistent.
right? And so I've never, obviously, I enjoy having sex, but I have yet to enter into a sexual relationship where I feel safe enough to experiment because because I think I do have a lot of shame around, like I said, like oral sex or any other like sexual experimentation. That for me, it really needs to be a safe space where I trust
Yeah.
um, the person to, because I'm deadly afraid of sexually transmitted diseases
Because they exist.
because they exist, and I'm very mindful of the energy that I take in, whether that's,
Yeah.
food to nourish my body or energy that nourishes my body. And so it's because sexual energy is one of the most powerful energies that we have. And I'm very mindful. And that's not to say all the time, because sometimes, I have been like, well, fuck it. Just like I say, well, fuck it. Let me go to Del
Well,
Taco
but
today,
yeah,
especially
that's
when I'm
good.
real full.
Ain't
And
nobody
that's,
gonna be got time to be waiting around on shit to
yeah,
be
it
evolving.
can't be,
Like,
right. It can't be Whole Foods every day. Like that type of
yeah,
ship would
I need some
bring my.
Popeye.
It's every now and balance, right? You do need some
Yeah,
Popeyes, and I've had that. But with that, I haven't felt safe and I haven't felt comfortable to experiment,
yeah,
right? Um, but I enjoy having sex. It is something. I think it's very natural, uh, and I'm looking forward. I feel like I'm definitely putting that out into the universe where I feel like soon I'm gonna get a partner that I can be more experimental with. But yeah, as far as confidence, I'm very confident with my body. I love my body. Obviously, there's certain things that I wish were probably a little bit more bigger,
Girl,
and
don't we
things like
all?
that, right? But I mean, other than that, um, I think even as a young age, like I don't have like big boobs, but my butt for a a thin girl has always been pretty, decent size.
Yeah.
It's definitely not flat. And so it's caused a lot of attention, especially as a Latina. Butts are really big, as now it's become a global thing.
Yeah, remember the
Um,
90s when everybody was trying to be super skinny?
yeah,
And
exactly.
now we're
And
all
that
trying to like inject any piece of fat in our bodies into our asses.
exactly. And so, like I remember, and I think that's where a lot of like my shame or like because I'm used to it's part of my culture. There's catcalling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that you get catcalled.
There goes that
And
idea of objectifying, right?
oh yeah, for sure. And I even remember like 'cause I remember one of my aunts, I must have been, I don't know, what, 7 years old, 8 years. She's a beautiful woman. She had a beautiful body. And I remember um she must have been like what, I don't know, in her early 20s, if not in her late teens, like 18 or 19. But calling men doing the H because I'm Mexican, so any Mexican, you know what I'm talking about. Um, and feeling very like, and she was loving it because it was part of the culture, right? And I think she was married at the time, so she was happy to be like, I still got, even she's a
I
beautiful woman,
still
she was
got it.
still very young. But yeah, when you're married, whatever, and being like, okay, like knowing that that's part of the norm, knowing that these older men are going to objectify you and are going to, try to hit on you. I mean, that was part of it, right? But again, very late bloomer. Everything I did was always like late. Like I think I didn't like just I don't know. I just don't know. And I think it's probably being raised Catholic and this idea of being
Yeah, I was
pure.
going to say it's probably the Catholic thing. And also, I think that, there's so much emphasis on a woman to save herself than there is
Oh
for
yeah.
men. Because I
And I
think for
mean,
myself, I had sex at a very young age with a
yeah, I
woman.
mean, for sure. That was like drilled in. Like and I can remember like conversations with my friends who were talking about saving yourself and waiting till you're married. Um,
Yeah,
even
no,
though
not
no,
my
they,
friends. All of my friends were fucking.
well, I'll come to find out that's very interesting because now as adult women, when we talk, I'm like, bitch, you were fucking the whole time. They're like, yeah. You know what I'm saying? But because I think, I mean, mind you, I
That's what
think
you
that
did back then. You didn't talk about being a
no,
hoe because, like, it's not, I love the slut walk and, like, how we are reclaiming these concepts of, like, just because
yeah,
I'm sexually active does not make me a hoe or a slut. Like,
no,
I'm
it
just
doesn't.
exploring just like you exploring, you know?
Yeah, because I mean, it doesn't go the other way. That
Yeah.
type of stigmatization only. Did I say it right? Stig, stigma,
Stigmatization.
stigmatization. Gracias. Only happens with women because men could sleep with
Yeah.
hundreds of women,
And still
and
can't
they're
fuck.
still one still get fucked, and two not considered a hoe. They
Yeah.
don't. Even to this day, I mean, I feel like this younger generation is really trying to change the narrative and be like, "You a hoe," like even to like guys, but it didn't exist, back in my younger years. It didn't exist, and so, but women would be very like ostracized, like, "Oh, she a hoe,"
Yeah.
like,
And
"Oh,
I
she's
still
gonna."
think they do, man. TikTok be killing me with these dudes out here talking about what they want from a woman. And it's like, how about you just learn how to listen? How about you learn how to like work on yourself so that nobody has to show up and have some shitty ass experience with you? It's funny because me and Dimitri were talking before this, and I had saw this TikTok where this guy talks about um, women and how he's like, when a man's horny, what happens? We get hard. And he's like, but when a woman's horny, there's this build up and you got to like do all of these things and then you got to make all of this stuff. And he was like, and that's why lesbians got the cheat sheet because they're willing to like touch on them and do all of this stuff. And then by the time y'all have worked yourselves up, both of y'all can climax at the same time because both of y'all stuff works the same. And I'm thinking to myself, like, how stupid do you sound to say that they got a cheat sheet when you just gave yourself the cheat sheet? I was like, why don't you just stop using women as like masturbation tools and actually put in the work? I talk about myself and like how when
Facts.
like how when I masturbate for like 2 to 3 hours sometimes because
Oh,
I like the
wow.
orgasm of when I work myself up to it
Mhm,
versus just this instant gratification, which is
mhm.
probably why I can last longer during sex or I can perform differently during sex because I'm not just trying to give myself this like jerk myself off and get on with my day kind of thing. And it's like, no, I need a couple of hours to do this because I want to be able to
Mhm.
build this up. When I have sex, it's the same way. Like I had a sex partner that we would like fuck all night. And like at some point we would just be like, I tap out. We would tap out. We would literally be like, I have to tap out. Like and there was very few nights at which I tapped out where he was like, I can't do this no more, so we gotta tap this shit the fuck out. Like we've been fucking for 4 hours.
Oh, yeah, those are good ones.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
stop, we smoke a blunt, we like
and go back
start
at it.
doing it again.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, let me take another break. Let's come back and do this. Let's go to McDonald's. That's how I got so fat because all we was doing was fucking and eating. I was like, this don't even make no sense. All we did was fuck and eat. But it's just so interesting because, like, when we sit here and we talk about sexuality and
Mhm.
how a lot of us in this reality are not trying to explore what that is. And a lot of
Yeah.
times it's within yourself. What do you do in
Oh,
your own?
yeah.
Again, I go back to this every fucking time I say something about how do we change something? How do we change something? It's about
Right.
your own
You.
personal practice. What do you as an individual take up as your own personal practice so that you can be like, oh, that's the dude that didn't fuck me in 5 minutes. I talk with
Mhm,
Dimitri about like some because I've blown a million dudes.
mhm.
Um, and I tell him I was like, I've had dudes that like I could get to the base of their cock one time and they would have orgasm. That
Mm.
tells me that you do no long-term self-pleasuring. You are not building it up.
No.
Like it like almost like tantra. Like for me, when I have a
Yeah.
sexual partner, I will masturbate
Mhm,
and not come
mhm.
and do that probably every single day until I see them. Because I want the earth to
Wait,
shake
wait, wait,
when I
back up. You say you will masturbate and not come?
yeah, so semen retention basically.
Okay.
I would work myself up so
Mhm,
that when it was time to have sex, I had this rush of adrenaline and testosterone because I've been
mhm.
charged up for so many days. I'm like, I'm ready to do this.
Can I ask you a question? Can you talk
Sure.
about the difference in feeling when you retain your sexual energy versus when you orgasm, like when you feel the seed? Do you notice a difference in your like physiologically in your body?
I do because I think that there are two different, like, there's an orgasm and then there's like coming, right?
Mm.
Like,
Can you
men
explain
can
the
just,
difference between the 2, please?
um, one, I always say this. So when I was a
Mhm.
sex worker, I always did this. I would go, and most of the time they were married. Don't judge me. Were married men,
I'm not.
and they would come fast. So I was
Mm.
always left with a lot of not coming,
Mhm.
or I would come, but I just only came so that they would be like, sex working is difficult sometimes because they want all these specific things like I want you to come in my mouth, or I want you to come in my ass, or I want you to whatever come in this condom
Mhm.
so I can save this cum for later.
Mm. What do they do
um,
with it?
so
Never mind.
I would come and then I would go home and masturbate,
Ah.
almost as if it didn't happen. But now if I um, masturbate a little bit and then don't come, masturbate a little bit and don't come, which is usually how, um, like when I say I masturbate and it takes me a long period of time, I'm not
Mhm.
consistently masturbating the whole time.
Uh-huh.
I may pause in between that and go drink some water or smoke a bowl or look at myself in the mirror for a little while
Mhm.
because that turns me on.
Mhm.
Um, and then I go back to it, and like the orgasm is full body. Like it's like
Um,
so I explain it as like energy shooting up out of the head, which
mm,
they say is actually what happens during sex, but you're supposed to learn how to take
yeah.
that energy and cycle it through the chakras, right?
Yeah.
So that's
Mhm.
basically the same thing. I'm using all of my sexual energy and I'm like harnessing it for myself, but it's like earth shattering. Like I
But you don't
probably
come. You're not coming.
no,
There's
I
no
am coming.
ejaculation. Oh, there is
Yeah,
ejaculation.
when I finally ejaculate, not
Okay.
like you know, usually when I finally ejaculate.
Mhm.
It's like that. But most of the part, it's really just stimulant. Like I'm just
Mhm.
like, like I can't wait to have this experience, or
Mm.
more so using my imagination versus trying to use a whole lot of porn,
Mhm.
um, because I think that it makes for a more authentic experience when you are actually having sex. Because porn sort of gives the false illusion, and that's all scripted and made up anyway. But yeah, it is definitely two different things.
Mhm.
Um, so I try to practice on that because I do believe that sex shouldn't be like super quick.
Mhm.
It should take some time.
Yes.
That's why unless your sexual partner, and I also believe that you should always sort of change it up and try new things because there's so much to explore sexually. Like
Mm.
there's pegging, there's BDSM, like
Wait, what
and
is pegging?
pegging is when the woman fucks the dude.
Huh. Okay.
With a strap on or finger
Uh,
or whatever. Um, but there's BDSM. I get what you mean by when you say you want to be comfortable and feel like it's a safe space because I felt that way with BDSM. Um,
which
the,
is what is that?
basically
I'm
like
sorry, maybe the
bondage and
listeners probably know, but I have no idea.
bondage, bondage and
Uh,
like S&M.
okay.
Um, so the first time that I did that, it was with a guy that I had been sleeping with on a regular basis, and he was
Mm,
like, "Would you be into trying this?" Like, I've definitely had extremely rough sex.
mhm,
I had a guy slap the shit out of me in a shower once, um,
mhm,
and that was interesting.
mm. That does not sound pleasurable. But
Back
hey,
then I was into things that I think that I'm not so much into now.
mm,
Like that sort of stuff was um, really common during that sex working time period.
mm,
A lot of it was because I was doing some stuff to people that required that sort of background, like tying
mm,
people up and using whips or using different things to probe people or
mhm,
um, using male chastity rings. So it just becomes something that I get when you say I need a safe space to explore it because you want somebody that you can trust
yeah,
to be able to do it. Anywho, we've talked enough about sexuality, and maybe
yes,
we'll
we
do
have.
another episode diving a little bit more deeper into it. But as of right now, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Um, like always, Yolanda, it is a pleasure
Yes.
to have these interesting conversations. Um, but
And you know what? Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that because I know that was big for you.
right, because I was like, oh my God, my
So,
mom could hear this.
yes.
But now I
So
just
thank
keep
you.
thinking to myself, like, it doesn't even matter. Like, it was so long ago and it was out of the idea of survival. Like, I needed to survive and
Yeah.
I did not want to depend on them. So I did what I had to do. I think
Yeah.
that we all come to a point in life where we do what we have to do. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
letting me talk about my crazy life that I have experienced here. But Like always, we will talk again next week.
Yes. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.